Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. I'm Ed Ciucevich here, and I'm your host, and we have a worldwide exclusive. I have someone in studio here with me who worked on Gemini Man, and this episode is all about Gemini Man, and his name is Scott Schreiber. Welcome.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate you having me on again.
I'm going to really appreciate your insights on this because you've got some great insights.
World exclusive. Huh?
World exclusive. And let's see. So where do you want to start?
Let's just start talking about the film.
Let's just talk about the film. Okay, it came out this weekend. I don't know what today's date is, but yeah, it came out Friday. It came out against Addams Family, and the second week, which is another record-breaking week for Joker.
Yeah.
And
which is kind of unfortunate timing for Gemini Man. I think that because it's an action flick and it is definitely something you have to go to the theater to see.
Right.
I think that the timing of Joker really hurt its box office chances.
At first, I thought it was released. When I first saw the release date, I was thinking it came out the same week as Joker. It would have gotten completely buried. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But Joker's just, not stopping. And brilliant film, but
which is unfortunate. Like, I think that this film is the 3D is groundbreaking. The visual effects are groundbreaking. It's actually when we look, like, I think 10, 15, 20 years down the line, we're going to look back and be like, wow, that was a key landmark in filmmaking. Yet the critics aren't really liking it. It's not making enough money. And I understand why the critics, like, the script is a little cliche. There's a little bit of poor acting. And when you're in this high frame rate, too, it actually brings out the poor acting a little more. Mm-hmm. You see it so clearly, and it just kind of takes away from it's almost too real.
No film since Avatar have I been impressed with the 3D. And it's more so than the 3D in this. It's that frame rate that almost makes the people feel like, and if you're older as I am, some people don't even know what I'm about to talk about, but a Viewmaster, and you would put the little round circular thing in there, and I had one that was like dinosaurs when I was a little kid, and they would be like this. They would kind of be set out from the background, and that's kind of how I felt there. It almost, at times, made the background feel a little fake, just like one or two shots.
Yeah, they're calling it an immersive experience, and it really is, because it's not your typical 3D where things are popping out at you. There
are a few.
There are one or two moments like that, especially when they're the attack on the convenience store,
right? And like glass is flying,
all that,
but other than that, it's more. I call it atmospheric, but this is like even more than that.
It really puts you in the moment, like puts you in the action. Like the motorcycle chase scene is insane, especially in 3D. Like, you feel like you're a part of the chase. And actually, that brings me a story from being working on the movie. At the offices they built basically a theater, so to watch the dailies and whatnot, which is standard. Mm-hmm. But they had it equipped with the high frame rate, the 3D, so you could we could go watch the dailies in 3D, and yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was going to ask you what that was like, because you got to see some of that, right?
Yeah, that was really cool, going to see the dailies and seeing this like ultra realistic. At the beginning of the production, and it kind of tapered off as we went along as they got busier. Every Saturday we had a 3D screening of different films. And so I guess what brought me to this train of thought was one of the films was a 3D documentary on motorcycle racing. So it was
interesting.
Yeah, so they wanted to, like, Ang Lee wanted to kind of.
I love that you call him Ang.
Well, I only met him a couple of times.
I was hanging with Ang.
Yeah. Right. But you kind of, after seeing the film, I understand what he was trying to capture, because we watched this documentary and it really did put you on the bike. And, we experienced that watching that in 3D. So he did capture that in the film perfectly. That's such an intense scene. I actually got a little dizzy,
Yeah.
But these 3D screenings, other than that, I think there was a French film we watched. We watched about a 45-minute section of Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, or what, I think that's what it's called.
and
the first one that he did in the high frame rate, and it is ultra realistic. You're like really there. You're like sitting across the table from a guy, But the one screening that, was the special moment that I'll never forget is watching Life of Pi.
I was about to say, that would have blown my mind.
And it was already one of my favorite films. And then to be able to actually have a screening and sit right behind Ang Lee and the cinematographer Dion Beebe, and with my coworkers, my buddies, and watch Life of Pi, and I could actually look down at Ang and like see his reactions, and it was really a cool experience and something I'll never forget. And I'm so grateful to have worked on this, and that's why it's one of the best experiences that I've had in my work in my career so far.
Well, so that's the frame rate. We got to talk about that,
because 120 frames per second, which is just
the average is 24. In theaters. I think I saw in an article that Ang Lee said that it was almost more important for him to get this technology out there and show how it can be used, like creating that double that looks so photorealistic of Will Smith, the younger version, and that it's important to get that technology out there. But so we saw it we had to drive up the coast a little bit to see it in 60 frames per second.
Correct.
In 3D. Now, the IMAX here in Savannah only has it for like this week, which is crazy.
And it was only in 2D.
And it's only in 2D, even though it's an IMAX. And
24 frames.
And 24 frames. And so you're not going to, to be honest with you, my opinion, it's not the strongest script. I know this thing has been shopped around for about 20 years. Will Smith, I feel like, pulls this film along on his charisma alone. You could almost, and the fact with the technology, of course, that's like that's another level. And I think Ang Lee deserves some kind of Oscar recognition for the achievement that he's made.
I at least hope that the visual effects team gets some love here. They should. Ang's intention with this film is to get people to come back to the movies, to get to have a truly immersive cinema experience where people want to go to the movies again. And we live in this world where people are basically only going to see Marvel movies, and
they're going for the big spectacle films, and they're going for those tentpole releases, and I love those. I'm one of those people, but I do like an intelligent film. I do like a film that's different, that's got in a small niche, whatever that word is. And
so this is a 3D spectacle to behold. Right. Like if you go see this, you have to go see it in 3D. And I think that's what's hurting it in the box office, because what was there's only 14 theaters
in the whole
country
that can show it in the 120 frames per second. Right. Closest to us is Atlanta, and and then in 3D is because to play it in 2D 24 frames per second, even if it's an IMAX, you're not gonna be impressed by it.
I don't think so. I haven't seen it in 2D yet, and I'm curious to see it. I don't think it will have the same effect.
I think I'll be let down.
Right,
because it's like driving a Lamborghini, and then then you've got a Datsun or whatever cars.
And really, the pacing of the stories, it starts off with him executing a mission, but that's not that exciting. He's just a sniper. And then it takes maybe 20, 30 minutes for another action scene. So you're getting all this set up, and when it's billed as this action-packed movie. So I think that hurts it a little bit. But again, it's like I'm intrigued, I'm enthralled, I'm impressed by the 3D technology, and even what they did with the visual effects and the younger Will. I think that's the draw of this film, and I just wish critics would weigh that heavier than, say, the cliche script. And there are some obvious comparisons.
Now this flies in the.
There's some obvious comparisons to Looper.
Yes.
There's not the time travel or anything, but it is, younger self battling an older self. Then there's just kind of the hitman, the same old hitman tropes that he wants to retire and blah, blah, blah. And so, yes, there's definitely some cliche things here, but I want people to focus on the visuals and the importance of this 3D technology, the fully digital character. This is the first time it's ever being done. And I think there's maybe one or two moments where I was like, that does kind of look like a computer generated character. Right. But most of the time I was like, wow, that looks like the Fresh Prince.
Mm-hmm. And Will Smith's such a great actor. He even acted like he was younger. You could tell, like, not that his character used a lot of slang, but it's just in the way he emoted, was felt more realistic, and different than the current older version of him in the film. Now, the story, if you, and this is weird, we want people to see this for the film altogether, but we wanted to see it, especially for the technology. We want that. And normally we would say story over visuals, and because, CGI can go really wrong. It can, a terrible film, a terrible story. To me, this isn't the strongest of stories because I feel like this has kind of been done. My personal opinion. It is a weaker story, but the visuals, I was captivated from the moment I sat down until the moment after. In fact, when I walked out of the theater, I was kind of questioning what was real around me. And I was so immersed in the technology of it. If this were just any film that didn't have that technology, or it was a 3D to 2D conversion or something like that, then I might not even be talking much about this film other than Will Smith, who's always great in it.
And I get that. And I'll admit, when I started working on a project and got the script and I read it, and I was like, wow, Aang's got a lot to fix here.
Right.
Because the script was pretty simple. But then again, the emphasis was on the visual effects.
Right. And he has a masterful eye. I mean, Life of Pi is gorgeous. If you've ever seen Brokeback Mountain, just the vistas, the mountains and everything, they look so incredibly beautiful. And he does that
for Gemini Man when he does that with Gemini Man. Buttermilk Sound, and there's some great shots of here in Savannah. We filmed in
some great locations.
Yeah, Glenville gets a tag in the movie, and that's where they blew up a town block. I think there was actually a massive fire or something in the past in Glenville, so they used this area that was already destroyed and then built it up, destroyed it again, and then built it up again. Like when they left, they did some renovations for them. But yeah, and so there was some filmed in Glenville, some places here around Savannah, and then down to Cartagena and Budapest. And oh God, it's so beautiful. Like visually, this is a stunning movie.
Like the sniper. Oh, and by the way, I guess I should have said spoilers on this. We're spoiling all over the place.
Yes, spoilers.
We left the fridge door open and this thing is spoiled. So, when he's setting up the big one, I think it's the opening scene where he will
train.
He's gonna snipe the train and all that. That's visually stunning. It's just Ang Lee is just a master of the visual, and it makes sense that his strength would be in this groundbreaking technology. He's another James Cameron. He's another, that's really pushing it. Mm-hmm. It's like George Lucas didn't like The Force Awakens. We found that recently in Bob Iger's book, because when they first showed it to him, because he said, well, it didn't do anything. He said every time I made a Star Wars film, there was a technological leap forward. Skywalker sound, THX came out of him making Star Wars, and in the CGI between, like, when we had Yoda in episode 1, he was still a puppet. And then by episode 2, not Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, he was digital. So then by the time we get to episode 3, he can do lightsaber fights, well, in 2 and 3, and it looks realistic. And among other things. So I put Ang Lee up there.
Right, and I think,
the visual aspect of things.
To piggyback on that, I think that this is that first step. It's like we're going to see a progression from this film moving forward of digital characters and immersive 3D, and I at least hope so. The box office isn't really supporting that, like
well, the theaters, and I think it's, had this been available, if anything, this ought to be a wake up call, because there are TVs out there that can process 100. I can go down the street and buy a TV that can do 120 frames per second, but the average,
or 4K,
and 4K,
in 4K, like 4K. That was the one thing. Like even the 14, that were showing 120 frames per second was not showing it in 4K. It was 2K.
So it's still not
really. Nobody in America saw this movie the way Ang Lee intended, and that's unfortunate.
And not to say that the visuals are covering a weak story. I mean, this story isn't the greatest script ever, in my opinion, but these visuals elevate the entire film, and of course Will Smith. I've said that before. I'll say it again.
I think that again, Ang Lee and Will Smith, they both
a great team,
did the best they could with this material.
Yeah, and I think he achieved another level. Ang Lee achieved a cinematic level that only someone like maybe James Cameron at this point could rival.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, because like there really hasn't been a 3D experience like Avatar until this. I mean,
I still hold Avatar up as, I don't think Avatar is a strong movie as a story. I don't think it's kind of a simple story. I didn't go and see it 1,200 times. Yeah. But when I saw it, it was the most immersive, and until this, it was the most immersive 3D that I've ever seen.
I remember watching Avatar, and like there's just the briefing room where at the beginning, and he's giving the gray-haired guy's giving a briefing to all the soldiers, but you're sitting in the seat with the soldiers, and it really immerses you. And it's like it's something so simple as just sitting in a room. But I remember that clearly, like, wow, you're actually feeling like you're a part of the movie. And again, that's what Gemini Man is trying to do, and I think it accomplishes that.
Yeah, it definitely overachieves in that sense. I mean, this is next level. It definitely is for me visually. And Gemini Man is something you have to see, because I'm afraid it's going to have a short shelf life because there's, we're getting into the Oscar season. We're getting into the, there's still, the Rise of Skywalker. There's,
I mean, it's only having a 1 week run in the IMAX.
As far as I know, they may extend it, but
I don't think they are. Like, Zombieland at Double Tap is going to take it out, and
on this Friday, yeah.
So it's not going to be there that long. The 3D showings are unfortunately limited. Right. You have to, heck, we had to travel 45 minutes
just to see it in 60 frames per second. Yeah. We could have traveled 3 hours, 3.5,
5 hours,
about 5 hours maybe to Atlanta, in traffic, and seen it in that was in 4K, was it? Also, I'm not sure.
No, that was the 2K, but nobody saw it in 4K.
So nobody saw it in 4K. Can you? I can't. I think if I got to the 120 frames per second, I might get nauseous. It didn't bother me in this film as I thought it might, because I know The Hobbit played around with that. They did. I think they did 60 frames per second, or if it was even that.
I think it was 48.
It might have been 48. I think you're right. I think you're closer to right. Okay. Or closer to right. Closer to correct.
I like being close to being right.
Or something. Yeah. I feel like what you're saying is correct. And, but yeah, in 60 frames per second, there was one little moment, and maybe it was during the motorcycle chase that I felt a little, but my main effect was when I walked out of the theater and I kind of felt like, whoa, okay, there's sunshine. And it just feels like I'm in an artificial reality, or I'm in a, it felt outside felt fake after being in this fake world, and some people say towards the end of Gemini Man that and maybe the second clone, I guess they said, seemed more emotionless, but it was in the story that was the point. Yeah. And they said that maybe some of this breaks down, but the visuals, I don't think the visuals broke down at all. It was still realistic. I felt like there was a person there. I felt like Junior was there, and I felt like Junior the second, I don't know. And I still think there's a clone army out there. It's Attack of the Clones will be the Gemini Man, Attack of the Clones, directed by, I don't know. Anyway, but I think it's open for a sequel. And
well, let's see how China, it hasn't opened in China yet.
You're right.
So, and I think it's made 50 something million altogether so far worldwide.
And that includes like the 20 million opening, and that's probably everybody's the naysayers gonna say, see, that this is an example where we have style over substance, and most 99% of the time I would agree, except in the case of Gemini Man. This, you have to see it visually. If you don't see it at the highest resolution, you're gonna just think, okay, it's an okay film, but you're gonna miss the whole. It's like having one eye closed during watching a film or something like that. You don't have both eyes open because you don't feel this film. You feel the visuals. I felt the visuals. I felt like I was just like with Joker, which is different, but I felt like I was in that character, through the story and the performance of Joaquin Phoenix. But in Gemini Man, I felt like with Will's performance as the Junior and Junior clone or whatever, Junior the second or whatever, and actually his character, I felt like I was there, kind of in that moment, like I was in the room or looking through their eyes, kind of. And I think it's a shame that people aren't giving enough love to Gemini Man. And
well, let's see how China reacts, how they go to the theaters and see it. If it does well there, it could bring the money up to break even. I can't say exactly how much the budget was, but
I've done some research on my own, and I want to say that it's probably got to make about 250 million roughly, overall, to cover everything, expenses and everything, and maybe start turning a profit. So I'm not asking you to
I can't clarify that, but and that's a long, that's a lot of more money to be made. So that means looking good. China's
got to really show up for this film. And if I'll tell you what, if they're showing it in China in 4K and they're showing it in 120 frames per second, it'll be a massive hit. And it's still a good story. When I say this is kind of a weaker storyline, it's still Will Smith, and Will Smith he's got a magnetic personality. Just that name, he's one of those people like Tom Cruise that can still pull people in the theaters just on name alone.
And his supporting cast isn't too bad,
right?
It's not a real stretch for a lot of them.
Benedict
Wong kind of plays the same kind of guy that he always plays. Clive Owen plays the villain he typically plays,
right?
So there's not much of a stretch for those performances. I thought Mary Elizabeth Winstead was pretty good.
She had a strong female character. She wasn't just helpless.
Yeah, I love the scene like when they're in the battle at the end and she gets shot and Will's pulling her, like she's on her on her backside, and he's pulling her away, but yet she is just like she's still unloading full, that gun. What's her name? Sarah Connor.
She's still, that made me think of Terminator. Sarah Connor. She's still kicking ass, and I love the part, of course, with the teeth. And all that, the interrogation scene, that was pretty clever and fun. So,
and we'll see her in Birds of Prey here soon.
Yeah,
as the Huntress, I believe.
And it's called Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of Harley Quinn or something like that.
That's pretty close if it's not accurate.
Yeah,
a little long-winded. It could have just been called Birds of Prey, but I guess they want to get the word out that this is about Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn. They should have called it Harley Quinn, and I would have been fine with that. But
exactly.
But
they're going for the whole female empowerment group, and which could be really cool.
Which Marvel is very close to doing their Avengers A Team or whatever. It's not called A Team, but which is the all-female Avengers, which will be interesting. But that's another story for another episode of the podcast. What are some things that we haven't covered that you want to talk about, or are there any things, points we haven't touched on?
I don't think so. I just had some great experiences working on this. I mean, didn't get to go to set much. I'm in the office more, but I met some great people. Just being able to meet Ang Lee, met Jerry Bruckheimer, met awesome. You met Ewan McGregor because he's dating Mary Elizabeth Winstead and just happened to be there. And I mean, just that was a cool moment.
So you saw Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yes, absolutely.
In person.
Sorry, bud. So
of all the people, I could have been there.
So this was the first big budget film that I worked on. I was on a couple of projects before this, but this was the first big budget. It was a really cool experience. I was a part of a big team. I think there were maybe 17 of us in our department, and it was great. I had met a lot of great people, still friends with quite a few people from this, and it was an awesome experience. Some good connections in the business there. Yeah, absolutely. And something you'll always remember. I was on a lesser known film, Galveston, that didn't really get much of a release, and I made a lot of good connections there. So it was very interesting to being on set and even if you're working in the office or you're actually on set there, it's just fascinating to be in that microcosm of a village of people that are bringing something to life that doesn't exist in the real world, and which is a film, and just seeing it all come together, all the aspects of it, and you got to see. Wow, you got the preview with, you got to sit with Ang Lee. I mean, how amazing that must have been, and to see his reactions and that's definitely a moment, an experience I'll never forget. And I know the people, the friends that I had around me, like they feel the same way. It's just kind of this surreal moment to look back on, to be able to say, I watched 3D Life of Pi in the same theater with Ang Lee. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Nothing to it. Yeah. Me and Ang just hanging out. Cool. Well, if there's nothing else, I would suggest people run out immediately, find the highest frame rate you can of Gemini Man. Must see in 3D. Yeah, go support this film. I mean, this is meant to be a theater experience. Right. Going out and going to the theater. Please go to the theater and see this. I don't know that. Well, I wonder when it comes out for streaming, if people have 4K televisions that can, 2160p, and I guess the 3D TV has kind of been forgotten, but these high resolution television. So you may get a great effect if you're watching it 4K at home. Right. So. And I wish somewhere along the line we get to that point. I mean, I know people that shoot stuff in 8K, which is just ridiculous, and I can't imagine what that would be like. But that's where we're moving. It's where we're going. And anyway, so I guess we're gonna wrap things up here if there's nothing else to say. And go see Gemini Man, see it in the highest resolution, get it done, and thank us later. And I want to thank you, Scott Schreiber, who was a member of the, I'm going to say cast, but a member of the, No, I didn't sneak on set to be an extra or anything. No, you weren't an extra, but you were an important part of the film. You helped pay the bills. That's right. So you kept the money flowing, I suppose. And that's every bit as important, because if that doesn't happen, nothing's happening. So every job is important. You see all those names that scroll, and especially on Gemini Man, there's a couple thousand names. Yeah. Everybody has a part. Yeah, everybody has a part, and it's so important. All right. Well, once again, Scott Schreiber, thank you for joining me here on this very special world exclusive of
review of Gemini Man.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it, bud.
And thank you for being here. And everybody check us out, geekhomeworld.libsyn.com. That's geekhomeworld.libsyn.com. That's our main website. We're on iTunes. Well, it's not iTunes. What is it? Apple Podcasts. We're on Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, that's where you'll find us. And go ahead and like that Facebook page, Geek Homeworld, on Facebook. And thank you. And we'll see you later for another episode of the Geek Homeworld. Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+. Follow and interact with us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on iTunes and leave a review. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.